I am pleased to welcome to the show Pastor Shannon Wright. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for making time for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are in election season. I love election season. As you can see in my shirt,
I
vote,
see.
right? I definitely want folks to vote. My thing is this: I don't even care who they vote for, right? I just want folks to vote and get involved. So often I walk the streets and I talk to people who complain about the way things are, but they don't vote. And so I'm like,
Yeah,
you can't say nothing if you're not participating in the process. So you got to vote. And
absolutely.
you agree? Okay, so we agree. We agree. So you are running for mayor of Baltimore City,
I am.
and um, I assume that you don't think that the current mayor has done a good job.
Um, no, let's
Okay.
just be straight to the
Okay.
point. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hmm. I am a wife, a mom, a grandmother, a pastor, um, entrepreneur, and someone that really likes to see my community grow and flourish. And right now, that's not happening. Um, I'm running for mayor because I believe in how great and awesome Baltimore can be. But I also believe that it hasn't had the correct leadership to be able to get there. And that's not just on this current mayor, but going back some administrations. We've been going the wrong direction on some issues, and one specifically is education.
Absolutely. Education is something that I feel has effects on the youth violence that we have, and a lot of different things. So when you say that the system has been broken for quite some time, are we talking about uh, further back than former Mayor Sheila Dixon? Further back than that?
Right around there, right
Okay.
around in there,
Yeah.
right around in
And
there.
and
When
and
you,
so
when,
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you look at the school system and how broken it didn't happen overnight. It doggone sure didn't start in this administration. Um, and I've actually read the city charter, so I understand the mayor's role and responsibility with regards to education, as far as appointing board members and them finding a superintendent. But here's the thing: real grown folks know how to leverage power. So I may not be able to tell that board what specific policies, but I can tell that board if they're not meeting the standards for the part of the budget that I'm supposed to sign off on, what they need to do so that we're on the same page. We are not seeing leadership that understands how to leverage authority to be able to get things done for the greater good of the city.
And what do you feel about accountability, and how do we measure success from the school system? How do we measure that success?
Well, we measure it by graduation rates going up, not down. We measure it by um, the students doing better on their testing, and they're just having an overall improvement in preparation. I've heard so many stories of students that have graduated with a piece of paper out of Baltimore that went off to college and had to take the first year and a half remedial classes because they didn't even realize how much they didn't learn here in school. So we need to make sure that we're actually preparing our students to be able to compete on a level playing field. And that's just not happening. Now, I think there's some ways we can do it without raising taxes. I think if you increase the amount of charter schools, I think if you introduce academic savings accounts, I think also, and if you expand the boost program, I think it gives parents an opportunity to be able to get the best possible education for their children now while we work together to fix the system for the long term.
So what you're talking about, I think, would be dramatic change. How long is that? Something that you think you could do in 4 years?
Absolutely. The boost program is something that could be done very quickly. It's a program that already exists. So it would be about expanding it. As far as the academic savings accounts, that's legislation that would have to be introduced in Annapolis. I think it'll take 2 sessions really to be able to get enough folks behind it to even really seriously consider it. And as far as charter schools, that's all already on the books here. So it's just a matter of expanding um, the ability for folks to be able to qualify and actually run charter schools that work.
And so with regards to monies that have been dumped in the black hole that is called the Baltimore City school system, where do we begin to try to account for some of that?
So I think we're going to have a little bit of difficulty accounting for it, honestly. A district that is so prolific in how they cook the books, it's going to be difficult to find where it was cooked at.
Yeah.
And I say that based on ghost students. I say that based on a line from one of my favorite movies, Independence Day. You didn't think the toilet seat cost $14,000, did you? So I think for us to really be able to find where all the bones are buried, I don't think we're going to. I think we have to work forward and backward. We have to work forward by giving parents opportunities to be able to save their kids' futures now instead of making them wait until we get it together. And then while you're doing that, I think you also look back through forensic audits, performance audits, fiscal audits, all that kind of thing. But I think it's really important that we don't allow more classes of children to fall through the cracks while we try and get the grown folks to get it together.
I see a great comment here on Instagram, and it says that cannot change the educational system until the parents instill discipline in the kids. What do you think about that comment?
So unfortunately, parents disciplining their children is not something we can legislate. But what we can do is start to open those doors of opportunities for parents that want to make positive changes for their children, for their communities, and for the city. I think once people start to see that, there'll be others that might start to ask questions. Well, how do I get that? How do I get my child involved in that? We have to change the perception and the mindset. So if we start to offer positive opportunities and options, more people will start to be interested in that, as opposed to always talking about the negative because we don't see enough positive.
So you think that there's positive things happening, but they're just not being showcased or uplifted enough?
No, I think in my administration as mayor, there'll be positive things happening that we're absolutely going to showcase.
Okay. Um, youth violence is something that we have seen. I mean, it's been around since the beginning of time. Do you think that youth violence is spiking? Do you think that it's decreased? What is your vision, or what are your thoughts rather on youth violence specifically?
So you know how to ask questions that get me in trouble.
Well, I ain't trying to get you in trouble. I ain't trying to get you in trouble. But I think that it's got to be talked about.
I'm telling it straight. So when it comes to youth violence, it's something that's been going on for a long time. It goes back to a statement you made about education and parents disciplining their children. But again, we have to have options and opportunities to bring back hope into the city. That's number one. So people start to feel a little bit better. And then we have to incentivize parents to get back to basic parenting. So that way, when you do those things, you see less of a need for juvenile justice reform because the children are engaged. They are participating in either school, extracurricular activities, enrichment activities. We've got to get, if we want to take away the negative, we have to replace it with a positive. That's just math. We got to make the math math. And it hasn't been mathing in this city for a minute.
The math has not been mathing. What is your relationship with or thoughts on State's Attorney Ivan Bates?
So I like Ivan. Accountability is one of his key buzzwords, and I think that's kind of the mindset we need to have in the city right now. We've had too many. I couldn't tell you in the last 10 years, maybe your listeners know, how many different police commissioners we've had and how many have had issues. How many mayors have had issues? State's Attorney Mosby having issues. All sorts of folks having issues. Ivan Bates came in and said, listen, appreciate what's been said and done, but we're going to introduce accountability as the new issue. I can't get mad at that. I think that's the direction we need to be going in. I think folks need to understand cause and effect, and that starts with accountability. So I am all on board for that.
I as you, I like Ivan, and I think that he has his eyes on the correct prize, and I think that he's bringing a different strategy or thought process to his job. I was a bit surprised that he's not supporting Mayor Scott. Um, do you
But
think
why?
that? Why am I surprised?
Hmm.
It surprised me. It surprised me.
You're not going to
And
support
he,
somebody that's not supporting you.
yeah, yeah. What would you be able to have a good relationship with Ivan Bates, because Brandon Scott and he do not have, I don't think, a good relationship.
Absolutely, I would. Again, we get we get farther in the city and the community, and just as a rule, when everybody stays in their lane. Ivan's in his lane. He's keeping a good pace in his lane. As the next mayor, I'm going to stay in my lane. It's imperative to do a good job as mayor that you have a good working relationship with certain folk. Ivan is one of those. His agency and the mayor's office need to work together. I understand that concept.
Yeah. All right. So you said stay. Folks need to stay in the lane. All right. So we have, as far as what the lane of Ivan Bates is versus the lane of the mayor. You don't think that there's any overlap there, from the standpoint of the mayor?
There is. But again, if everybody uses their good driving common sense, just like the off and on ramps here, you get off on the same ramp in the same place you get on. The two got to work together,
Right. Right.
and they're
Um,
not.
yeah, it does not, it does not appear, that way. As far as, I was talking about the Inner Harbor and some of the projects for the city. Um, Very disappointing, the state of the Inner Harbor, downtown, as a whole. What are your thoughts on the proposals for the future of the Inner Harbor?
I'm not a fan of the Bramble proposal the way it stands. Um, for a lot of reasons that could probably take up the rest of your show. But I'm not a fan. I think there are much better uses of the land, the property downtown in the Inner Harbor. I think there are some things that could be done to really make businesses want to come back. You mentioned some of the bigger names that were here. Um, I like to cook. My husband and I cook together. We used to love to go down to the spice shop down there in the Inner Harbor and come all the way here just to go to the McCormick store. Just for that, we'd try and walk past the candy shop and some of the other places to go specifically to the McCormick store. There are some things that were here that brought people in that aren't here anymore. So we need policies that will encourage and invite and welcome businesses back to the city. You do that, you fix a whole bunch of issues going on in the city.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about the McCormick shop. Yeah, that was a good,
Hmm.
good vendor there. As far as the redevelopment, is there a role for the city in this redevelopment plan, or do you think that this is up to entrepreneurs to come up with something, and then for the city to get involved? Like, what is the role of the city in this?
I was very disappointed to see how heavily Mayor Scott's finger was on the scale to push this deal. I don't think that's the appropriate lane for the mayor, number one. I also think that there needs to be a rethinking of tips and city incentives, because one of the points you made was they're going to decide and we're going to pay for it.
Right.
I don't think that's the way it should go. I think there are a lot of things in the city that need to be invested in. that if the city is going to invest its resources, it needs to be in things that the citizens, the residents of Baltimore want and need that investment in.
Do you
I would,
think do you think that our city is business friendly?
I think it can be. I don't think it is right now. In order for our city to be business friendly, here's something. When you are a business owner and you're looking to move your business into an area or grow a business and invest in an area, you're going to look at a couple of things. One, how's the education system there? Because ideally, those students, the folks that come out of that education system, are going to be your employees.
Right.
You're going to want to move your family there. So you're going to want to know, again, that the school system is good because your children are probably going to go to school there. You're going to be looking at taxes and you're going to be looking at crime. So, no. Do I think the city is business friendly right now? No. Do I think it can be? Absolutely.
And that is something that you would push for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the best ways to be able to grow the city, be able to have resources and not have to raise taxes is to grow your economic base. That means instead of the city shrinking, it growing. And in order to do that, we've got to turn things around. So yes, absolutely. That would be my priority.
So as far as that, we're talking about the management of Baltimore City. There's a reported deficit of $100 million. I mean, what services, if any, would you cut? Like, how would you go about balancing the city's budget?
Now, unlike my opponents, I'm not really good at blowing smoke. So my honest answer would be, I need to see where all the dirt is buried in order to make an educated and real comment and statement on that. I have my thoughts and ideas on where it's buried, but until I could actually get in to see the books, I couldn't tell you that in any way that would be tangible. And I'm not one for blowing smoke.
Okay. All right. We've
Yeah,
talked
if I had
about.
to guess though, I would say this. I am not inclined to cut any services. I am inclined to realign and look at the budgets for the different agencies to see where stuff could be trimmed without cutting services. I think it took long enough to get recycling back weekly, so I want to keep that. We have enough issues with trash in the city with it still not getting picked up properly. So I want to make sure we can do those things. I think I've never seen a budget that didn't have some wiggle room. Never.
Right.
Without cutting services. It's like, and people don't have to take my word for it. When you go home at night and you looking at your own budget, you know where there's wiggle room because you know your budget. That's pretty much what I'm saying. I need to see where things are, what's actually attributed to what, to really be able to give you an honest answer on that question.
Okay. Couple of things. Tax incentive deals for developers, right? So you got to balance. You're playing a balancing act, right? We want things to be built. We want to make the city look better. We want some of these projects, and a lot of the developers are interested if they get some tax incentives. Where where do you sit with that, and how do you draw that line?
So for me, anytime we're giving away a resource of the city, it has to be because it actually benefits the city. We've seen too much of a giveaway that benefits sections of the city, but not the city as a whole. So I think if we want to see all these TIP investments, which tend to be in the inner harbor and all those sorts of areas, then we also need to balance that with those same kind of TIP incentives for the areas that have been most overlooked. It's not that we can't offer incentives, but those incentives need to be offered not just from the shiny, squeaky places that people want, but the places that need it as well.
Understood.
And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I say that. Let me get one more point in on that.
Go ahead.
You ever heard that phrase, you're only as strong as your weakest link?
Yes.
If we keep putting everything in one area and building that up, but you got to fight to get there, people aren't going to fight. So we have to build the city, not just parts of the city. So I just wanted to kind of really bring that point home. It's not about not doing development, but it's about doing development that builds the whole city.
Right. So as a developer, if I'm going to put on that hat, they're going to want to make these investments in places where they think they're going to get a return on the investment, because that's what it is. It's an investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, they want to do nice things for people, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So then they need
Mm-hmm.
to be incentivized to make those investments, and so I think that that's part of it. Which brings me to a subject that I think is near and dear to your heart, and that is healthy food priority areas and the food deserts. How do we address the food insecurity that we see in many parts of the city?
I'm glad you asked that question. So there's a couple of things that you do. You work with churches to be able to create mini markets in their districts. Most churches have not gotten back up to the attendance that they had pre-COVID. So for those that have parking lots, there's space that they can use. So the same concept of going to get a food box, you go to spend that amount of time you'd wait online to work in your church's food garden. And you would work with the community markets to be able to give whatever excess there to be able to help serve your community. That's number one. Number two, city-owned properties and apartment buildings, I would start neighborhood gardens on rooftops. Now, that means some of the city buildings would have to be fixed, because if not, the rooftop gardens will be in people's apartments. So we got to fix some structure. But I would use rooftops to do community gardens. You do things like that. You put produce in a way that people can get it. You also do some things for the environment, because the more you plant, the more you grow, the better our environment is. So there's a couple of win-win issues here. One of the things we probably won't have a lot of time to go into is health disparity. But if you're growing food and you give people an option and access to healthy, nutritious food, you cut diabetes and high blood pressure, which are two of the biggest killers in the Black community. You cut kidney disease and dialysis and a need for transplants just by people having better access to healthy foods. That would absolutely be a priority. When you talk about education and kids going to school, if their stomach is talking louder than the teacher, they're not going to get it, they're not going to hear it. When you talk about things that lead to desperation, not being able to put food on your family's table is right up there at the top of the list. So in my administration, we're going to have to multitask and multi-track on some things. You fix the food, you fix the schools, you lower the crime. You fix the schools, you fix the food, you lower the crime, you increase the appeal. You fix the schools, you lower the crime, you raise the appeal, you grow your base. They all work together.
All work together. We have been talking with Pastor Shannon Wright. She is a candidate for the City Hall top spot at City Hall. And so you decided to get into this race. And I know that you have been trying to, hold folks accountable, speaking truth to power. How has this campaign been thus far?
Oh, Lord. Well, number one, I'm running because I said 4 years ago I wouldn't run again if I thought the city was going in the right direction. It's not. It's just not. It's nothing personal against Brandon, but when you got a young man that's had every job at City Hall except dog catcher, and we still can't seem to get it right and get stuff turned around, I got a problem with that. And then as far as in this election cycle, one of my primary opponents at a debate we had a few days ago called me a gutter snipe.
Called you,
I said,
what was
okay.
that?
A gutter snipe.
Oh my.
Yes, it was an old school version of a hood rat. And I said, okay. I'll take that. I'll accept it, and I'm gonna see you one, because now I'm gonna show you what a gutter snipe hood rat is. Because
Wow.
me, I'm gonna fight hard for mine, and this city is mine. My primary opponent hasn't been here 6 months, and he got mad because I kept bringing it to the point where he said uptown and downtown. I said, you mean east and west? You ain't been here long enough to know that. So you can call me what you want to call me, but I'm here. I live here. I've lived here long enough to vote here.
Well, that's we need that. We definitely need folks involved that know the city and know the lingo. Truth Ministries on YouTube says now tell everybody what you called him first.
That's my
Okay.
opponent's campaign manager.
Okay, is that right? All right. Okay. All right. Well, your
And
candidate
to
can
be
come on.
truthful, I
Okay.
called him out of touch. I said he hasn't been here long enough to know the city.
Okay.
He said something else that called me to get really real with him, and I explained to him, I said, that might be because you're old as dirt. I sure did. And I'm gonna own it.
Oh my. Oh my.
I'm gonna own it. You
Okay.
can't face youth issues. You can't understand that certain dynamic when you're trying to do things the way people did them at the turn of the century. The last one.
Yeah. So your thought is that we need new and innovative ideas is
Yes,
what you're saying.
yes,
Okay. I
yes.
mean that I can understand that. And at the end of the day, I think that um if the focus is getting the job and bettering the city, that we can agree on, some of those things. So it seems like you've been down in the fighting in the trenches. Of course, folks know 2024 Baltimore City voters are going to cast ballots for the mayor, city council president, members of the city council, and others. Now, the in-person election Tuesday, May the 14th. There are options for early voting, voting by mail, and all that kind of good stuff. How do you feel about early voting and voting by mail?
I think COVID showed us that we need to have some options. I think to put all of our eggs in one basket and to for the majority of folks have to show up on one day in person is a challenge. And
Yeah,
COVID drove that point home.
definitely,
I think we need
definitely.
options. I think we need to make it so to encourage folks to get out and vote. Our ancestors, blood, sweat, tears to be able to get the right to vote. So I think it's if you want to sit and complain, you got to get out and vote. You got to have some skin in the game. So I think we want to do the things that help people to vote. I think we want to make sure there's honesty and integrity in the system, but I think we need to encourage people to vote, have some stake and some skin in the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. Early voting for this primary begins on May the 2nd through May the 9th. Early voting locations open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day during this period, including weekends. So definitely, folks, get out and vote. How can folks get involved with your campaign and find out more about you, Pastor Wright?
So the quickest and easiest way to find me is on Facebook, Right for Baltimore. Not because there aren't other methods, but as you can see with my opponents being a little scared and stalking me, we're going to go through Facebook and we're going to filter what's real and what's not through there.
Okay. All right. So Facebook and what is Facebook again?
Right for Baltimore.
Right for Baltimore. I definitely am wishing you the best, and hopefully you will come back and talk with me further down the line as the campaign moves forward.
I will be happy to come back to you regardless to the results on May 14th, because unlike other folks, this isn't a midlife or late life crisis for me. I'm real with this. I want to see change for the city, regardless to whether I am elected or not. I'm going to be here and I'm going to fight for this city.
Yeah, we the city definitely needs folks who care and folks who are going to do right. And it's a lot of times people think that it's difficult to do right, and then your name is right, right? But it is not difficult. I think it's easy to do what's right. I think it's
It
easy.
is. It is. And
Yeah.
it's funny because as you get older, you tend to be more honest, at least me, because I can't be bothered to remember a lie that I told. So I'm gonna tell you the truth. It's just
And
easier
sometimes
that way.
folks don't always like the truth though.
Well, I'm gonna give it to you straight, then you get to decide what you want to do with it.
Absolutely. So anything else you want to say? I'll give you the last word.
Folks, make sure you vote. It's important. If you're unhappy with taxes and the high property taxes, vote. If you're unhappy with the way the schools are, vote. If you're unhappy with food deserts, with juvenile justice reform, whatever it is, vote. Now, I'd like you to vote for me, but regardless, make sure you vote. Have some skin in the game and be a voice at the table.
All right. We've been talking to Pastor Shannon Wright. She is a GOP candidate for the job at City Hall. She wants to be the new mayor of Baltimore. And of course, I invite all candidates to reach out to me, djdiamondk@gmail.com.